Welcome back, everyone, to Star Wars Abridged. Today we are going to be going through Chapter 8 of Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi. We have learned up until this point that there is a tragedy, some sort of disaster coming toward Hetzal Prime and the rest of the moons on the Hetzal system. We learned that in the last chapter that these objects that are flying toward the system at near light speed, some of them are even carrying people on it, so that's making this mission much more difficult. The Jedi and the Republic are trying to save the Hetzal system, save the people in the system, and we see in this chapter if they think that they're going to be able to do that. Before we actually jump into Chapter 8, make sure that you are subscribed and leave a thumbs up on this video if you enjoy it, and also check out the Star Wars Abridged playlist for Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire if you're interested in that. But let's get into Chapter 8. So, the Chapter 8 header tells us that this takes place in Aguirre City, which is still on Hetzal Prime, and that there is 65 minutes to impact. So, the countdown continues to go down, and something, we still don't know exactly what it is about to hit in just over an hour. Actually, getting into Chapter 8, we are put into the point of view of Jedi Master Avar Kriss, who we met a few chapters ago, and we immediately get to see firsthand just how powerful she is with the Force. So she is still aboard the Third Horizon, that big ship that came into the Hetzal system that was carrying all of those Jedi Vectors and Republic Longbeam ships. She's still on board the big ship, the Third Horizon, and she is in a meditation state at this point. And what she is doing in this meditation state is she is displaying that spider web-like connection through the Force that she has, where she is able to have communication with all of the other Jedi that are on this mission. If you'll remember, either last chapter or the chapter before, it talked about how one of her specific abilities that she is able to display above everybody else is that she can keep an entire group of Jedi connected and all basically running on the same page, and she is the center point of their connection through the Force. So we see that her displaying this firsthand here in this chapter, and it just talks about how in tune she is with the Force in general and how she is acting as this central point in this network within the Force. It then reveals to us that there are 53 total Jedi Vector ships, so there are at the very least that many Jedi, but there's probably actually closer to 75 Jedi on this mission because some of the Vectors will have 2 Jedi in them. So there's probably about 75 Jedi on this mission, and I just thought that might be a little bit of an important point to include. So we see that Avar is sort of checking in on everyone individually. She can kind of sense what they're doing and can lightly communicate with them, and while doing so, we are introduced to someone named Elzar Mann. So Elzar is a Jedi Knight that grew up with Avar in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. It says that he does not work with any other Jedi. He always works alone, unless it is with Avar or one other person. This is because he has a knack for experimenting with the Force, which sometimes causes him to fail on the missions, and Avar even says that sometimes he fails spectacularly. However, Avar is quick to tell us that if lives are at stake or if it is a high-risk mission, he never does anything that could put the people in question more at risk. He only does these experiments and branches out and tries new things when it is a low-risk mission. However, it also tells us that the Jedi Council really does not like this, and that they are often upset with him for trying these things. Despite his age and skill set, he has never been granted the rank of Jedi Master because of how he chooses to run his missions, which greatly upsets him and makes him think that the Council is unfair. That sounds awful familiar, doesn't it?
What?
I wonder who another Jedi is that will have the same type of mindset and be put in the same situation a couple hundred years later. Who could that be?
This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Anyways, Avar then comes in contact with Taami, the Jedi that we met in Chapter 7, and she can tell that Taami is trying to relay an important message to her, but her connection with the Force wavers for a moment, and she can't really get through what Taami is trying to tell her. However, Avar is able to stabilize her connection with the Force, and she gets herself back on track and listens to what Taami has to say. Avar then hears what Taami is telling her, and she immediately gets up out of her meditation stance. She sees the Third Horizon's Admiral, Admiral Kranara, talking to Chancellor Soule, but the two finish speaking, and Avar hears Soule say that she will send as much help as possible. So, the Republic is still going to try to send some help, but it might not make it there in time. I mean, it probably won't make it there in time, but the only reason that Avar and the people that are helping Hetzal right now are able to do that is because they were already in the system. They were already close by. Avar then gets the attention of everyone on the bridge of the Third Horizon. She regretfully tells them that she has learned of something that will alter the mission they're on, and she then goes over to the display on the ship and taps on 10 objects, causing them to light up. She then explains to everyone that each object she just tapped are currently flying toward Hetzal, and they all need to be stopped, but there's a bit of a catch. All 10 have living people on board, and their lives are just as important as anyone else's. They're going to have to save the people and stop these objects from hitting Hetzal all at the same time. So, a lot of people on the Third Horizon just kind of are, at this point, are like, there's no possible way that we can do this. We're going to have a hard enough time just stopping these objects from hitting the moons or the planet. So, how are we expected to rescue these people at the same time? But Avar says, we've got to figure out something. We've got to come up with some kind of idea. And she says they have to at least try and save them. And she also tells everyone that she will contact the Jedi to see if they have any ideas on what to do. Avar then goes back to where she was in her meditation stance, and she closes her eyes again, letting the Force take over her. She's going to get back into that network of Force connections to communicate with her fellow Jedi and try absolutely anything she can to be able to save everyone in the system, including those that are on the flying objects. So that wraps up Chapter 8 of Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi. The picture is becoming a little bit clearer as we get into this book. We're kind of learning what is happening, what these objects are. We're learning how the Jedi are involved in all of this, why they were able to come so quickly. The book was a bit not confusing, but it just kind of threw us into the middle of everything in the first few chapters, and we were kind of like, well, what's really going on? But everything is starting to come together, and I hope that you are enjoying this book. If you are, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you leave a thumbs up and make sure that you are subscribed. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, may the Force be with you.